The officials committee had a revenue budget last year, let's just say $1.4 million. The party raised $15,000. I would encourage you all to come up with a more dynamic budget that covers all the activities, because it makes no sense to me to drive this.
The problem is if you combine everything, puts a lot of money that you don't have control over. However, you want to put everything in context. So some of those part well, that's the problem. No, I get it. That's just what I explained. So I like doing it separate and putting it in context. It's like all it's just they would inflate it.
It's a lot like the federal budget.
Basically, I'm completely sacrificing all of my fluff so that you can get a more accurate picture of the budget.
I'm expecting that.
But I would. So like last year, we raised, we sent $500,000. You raised like 300. So it shows us sort of you had a convention, you had an election. You raised $1.2 million for election integrity. You raised $1 million for victory. You raised $4 million that went to large donations that went to convention. And then you're like, still finished. So 40% is like, because then you have an off-year election like this year.
Just so you know, I don't have access to the spreadsheet. He doesn't. We ask for changes, they have to agree with what we want. Just so you know, and that's the way that I want it set up. It goes through somebody else that has to agree with what we want to change.
The most important thing in terms of moderation is cash as long as we keep that
Debt free. Debt free.
Yeah.
I understand the
Be honest with you.
I've got to work for
Yes, I know, yes. So that's the shirt, that's the place. Okay.
No, that was just a quick shot. think it's gonna be.
Don't do a meeting. Yeah.
They're the reason that I've Central Daylight or Central Standard Time in my minutes.
Oh, because of them? I like the black.
I just told them to ask for
What I'm trying to explain is
I tend to think they're the same.
You're here for county development. Y'all come on up toward the front if you would, please. We'll get started here in just a little bit.
We're in executive session. Just don't let it go. That's what you feel
Yes.
You dropped it. Oh.
I don't know how I managed to do that.
We're Jake. If it's an executive session, just listen. Just don't make sure. And I'm going to be honest, as long as everybody said. Not sure. 5 minutes. So we're good. By the way, Chip's not done for the session. None of the direction. It's kind of like he's in crazy world. It's just, he's kind of sad. So it's not like we're picking no. We got a lot. Yeah. This is not their fundraising. No. None of the big products are. It's just wants to bring the check in. This is what we do is we should process. No, but versus self-funded, it's $60,000. Yeah, it's good consideration. But if I can find a self-funded, there's the Dean County is the one who says.
All right, can I get a show of hands? Who's here for candidate development? Very good. Candidate development, are you coming? And we have to be in here. Is there anyone that's an excellent note taker who would like to volunteer for taking notes? Is there anyone semi-good at taking notes?
I have a voice recorder.
I'm Bruce Bishop. I'm the vice chair of the committee. Morgan running behind. I'm not sure what time she'll be here, but I've got an agenda that we can get started at. She said. So we'll get started. One of the things we need to do is get a final compiled list of candidates to interview, win or lose, and at different levels. Anybody else have any other suggestions? I guess we'll just dive down in this. We ought to go around and see who all is here, because when I say that, I know we have a candidate here that ran a great race, lost in a primary, will be running again as Dennis London.
Okay, good.
Up in Rockwall County. Go around and just give your names and something brief about yourself. Sure. Kind of broke down.
Well, he broke the ice for me. So Dennis London, I'm not with the SREC, but I have a lot of backing from the SREC. I'm not going to do my whole elevator pitch, but I've been in Texas since 2018. I was a political refugee from California. Came out here to the freedoms that we have, and I want to stand and defend them along with everybody else. So, thank you.
Deborah Calhoun Pye, and it's an honor to be here, and I'm excited about this committee because it's so important that we get great candidates to fill our party.
Elaine Cook, SD23, and I've been involved in local politics most of my political life, and that always also, you always end up in the big stuff, but it's the tiny stuff that affects your wallet and your kitchen.
Jenny Haynes, SD31. I'm not an SRAC precinct chair. I have a website, Texans Wake Up, just super interested in Texas public education and supporting our party.
And have you been a candidate, or are you interested in being one?
I'm thinking about it right now.
Good to hear.
Dale Gibbo, Senate District 13, the most democratic Senate district in the state. We need help. Our senator is Boris Miles. Okay, so we're working on developing some precincts. I've been precinct chair, election judge, SREC. I've been involved in Republican politics for about 30 years.
Thank you.
Mike Morreal, SD 21 committeeman. I have also run for HD 31 in the past for state rep, fell short of the primary. It was a great experience. I'm a retired Navy captain. I'm from right south of San Antonio, and after my career in the Navy, came back home and saw that I wanted to get involved and really stand for the country and the state that I love so much. So that's why I'm involved. But I wanted to just be here today. There could be opportunities in the future for being a candidate, but right now, being a part of the party and kind of being a part of understanding and the executive roles that we play at the party is a very important thing for us. So that's my
Matt, let's go over to you and then work our way up.
Oh, I'm Matt Becker, SC16. I'm just here to observe and hope I'm not running for office and work.
Susan Doyle, I'm a visitor from SD 24. I am interested in learning how to make my candidate be more effective.
Thank you.
I'm Dan Tully, SB 90, committee. I'm also from Tarrant County. I'm the vice chair of internal affairs for Tarrant County Republican Party up there, precinct chair, all that fun stuff. I've had tons of roles with resolutions and all of that stuff over the years. I got into full-time Republican stuff when I got out of being a city councilman in the city. So I did things kind of in the works. It's interesting. I'm glad to see the Republican Party taking an active role in the nonpartisan races. It's very important. It's very important.
Thank you, Dan.
My name is Laura and I became involved in 2015 when a student asked me to be a sponsor for a student club, Young Republicans First, and then Turning Point USA at the campus where I was teaching. I ran for county chair in Hays County in 22 and lost, but I'm helping with poll watcher training, canvassing, data collection, data analysis of our elections in Hays County. We did get sequential numbering on our ballots for this past general election. And just trying to, promote election integrity.
Okay, great, thank you. And again, I'm Bruce Bishop. I'm SD2. Fortunately, I have Democrat state reps. For a couple of years, even redistricting, just give me another Democrat. I can't complain too much because I personally believe I have one of the best senators in the state, and that's Bob Hall.
Whoa.
You did. So I guess I can afford to have other bad elected officials if I've got him. No. I shouldn't accept that. We've got a few that need some work in SC2. And hopefully we'll have some other candidates. I know one that did make our list. I think our charge is primarily to look at Hispanic districts and develop more candidates there, but maybe I'll remove his vice chair or something for having wrong opinions, but I think we ought to look at any race where we can recruit even candidates that ran a very good race last time and may have had the grassroots support but didn't win the primary. Dennis London comes to mind. There's one in District 70 in Collin County. Eric Boland was the darling of the grassroots, but got beat out by someone else. Well, she lost it to a Democrat, and we now have a Democrat state rep in Collin County that used to be red is ready to be. A little bit more about me. It's my third term on the SREC, but my first one since 2000. So I was here 20 years ago. Saw a lot back then. Dallas County was all red. Here's what can happen
In a short period of time.
I've seen some additional analysis. Maybe Matt can correct me on this, but after Hurricane Katrina, we had a lot moved from New Orleans. Well, they never went back. And I think they're doing more damage to us in Dallas County than the Californians moving here. But I still believe, and maybe I'm naive, that a majority of the Californians are moving here because of what we are, and we get away from California, not necessarily bringing their politics with us. I'm sure there's some that are.
I've seen that, things that show that most of the Californians moving to Texas are Republicans.
Yes.
Some of them are very.
Well, and as one of those, I'll tell you, when I was knocking on doors throughout the entire district, even in Collin County, the Democrat area, I did not meet any person that moved here from another state, whether it was California, Washington, Oregon, New York, Virginia, wherever, that was a Democrat. They were actually fleeing to Texas because of what Texas offers. And when they're hearing what's happening here, they're saying, we need you to win, we need people to stand up, because where else are we gonna go? You know, and people are looking now like, well, if I go somewhere, I guess I'm going to Florida. I don't know.
I'm not only an escapee from California, I went to law school at Brooklyn. It is hard to be a conservative in California. I love it here.
This may come as a surprise, but because I worked on Ted Cruz's presidential, I was a strike force director and traveled all over the country. But the largest donors came from California. That was his largest donation, full of money, was California. So, you know, they're not happy there. So hopefully you're right and they're coming here to get away.
One thing to keep in mind, don't write off states or counties, anything like that, because they're blue.
Yes.
There's still a lot of Republicans there. You think I heard about Harris County and Dallas County?
Hayes County too.
We're having a lot of trouble. We're all blue, right? But for President Trump, those two counties had the most Republican votes. We got killed in those counties, but there's still a lot of Republicans. We just don't have a majority, unfortunately.
But we also have a lot of non-voting Republicans. That's one of our biggest problems that we're facing, and I ran into it a lot, was voter apathy. And why should I? It doesn't matter, or it'll never happen here. That's what we heard in California all the time. And that's how, because I was in Orange County, which was one of the last Republican strongholds, and people were like, yeah, that'll never happen here. And then it happens, and you watch over that 20-year period where it just goes from strong red to strong blue, and that pendulum swing, it happens quickly.
Did that, we went in Dallas County. You like to flip through in 2 cycles.
Right.
And that's a combination of election integrity too. I'm here to tell you, I could be wrong, I do not believe that Harris County has lost since 2000. We were turned around in 18, and I don't think we lost in 18. I don't think we've lost since. It's just, we need the election integrity. It's you lose if you win. So we have a lot of issues in a lot of places, but I don't think that people having a heart for the Republican values is our problem.
I'm gonna call one other person to tell us a little bit about herself. She came in late. Jan, we went around the room and just introduced herself and gave a little bit about us. If you wouldn't mind doing that. And then Dennis is on this. We're recording it just for note taking, but if I could call on you, if you wouldn't mind taking some notes from Morgan, I would greatly appreciate it.
Let's see that. I'm Jan Duncan. I'm from SD 14, which is here in Austin. I'm talking about, count out blue counties. We're probably the bluest county, although we are becoming more red than Dallas and Houston right now. And we do have some of the largest donors and strongest donors, in the state. I mean, this is where the capital is, and we can give. We've got, Joe Rogan lives 3 blocks from me. Paul Mitchell lives 3 blocks from me. So, I mean, and they get a big, they don't get the party right now, because they don't believe in the party, but they are getting the candidates, which is good.
Yes, I know you just Travis County Republican Party race each year.
How much money did we raise? Zero. Zero, because Matt didn't know. Yeah. He was so busy with Potomac and with other issues, with local issues, that he just didn't raise anything for the county. So hopefully we'll have a fundraiser and make something happen. No, Matt will go yet, our county chair. But, I mean, we're strong here, and we got out more voters this year than we've ever gotten out before. We're not seeing the same voter apathy that, like Houston and Dallas are seeing for a big city. Ours are coming out. Our only problem is, because we are a tech city, we have the largest YR group in the state. They have over 400 members just here in Austin, but they cannot come out personally and say we're members of the YRs or to the Republicans, because all of their jobs have already told them, if you're a Republican, you're not. So, I mean, that's the tech industry, so that's, a little difficult.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Jen. Okay, so the first item on the agenda, and if you could send it to the Signal if you're on there. If you're not, write it down on a piece of paper, but we're trying to make sure we're not missing anything. When we're working at candidate development, we want to talk with some candidates that just ran and find out some things that were maybe very beneficial to them, or maybe some things that they wish someone would have told them. So if you've got some good candidates in mind, whether they won or lost, especially the new ones, we want to visit with them and make sure that what we tackle as a committee is going to help the most candidates out there. So if you've got any names, please get them in. We'll be finalizing the list and the questions. I think Morgan's hoping to try and finalize it by tomorrow, so we can get those names into it. And
What's the name of the Signal group?
good question. Get back to it. The one specific for this committee would be the 2022 campaign development.
And y'all are working off of Signal, or?
We have a subgroup on Signal, yes.
For some reason, I don't have the emails either. We need to figure out.
Well, we're not sending this out to everybody. We have just a list of the committee members or those that have asked to be on the 2022.
Okay, I'll apply for that, but even on the email, I'll get with you back.
Okay. So you'd have to divide us. Whoever owns Signal.
Morgan does. I don't know if I can. I don't know. I just know I'm on the group. Morgan might have set it up. I'm not an expert on that.
Morgan, I believe Morgan set it up, and she invited everybody on the committee immediately, and anybody else would need to be. So I sent my questions on Signal, and there's a whole bunch of them here going back to the first week, because when we had our first meeting, we were told to get our questions in that week, so I did. Now this is where she can go and get them. But I have some more questions after talking to some more people, and things like, was your county party involved at all in your race? Did you even talk to your county party? The number of people I've talked to who ran for offices that never attended a meeting of the office they were running for shocked me. You're running for school board and you've never been to a school board meeting? Yeah.
How do you know you really want to be a school board member if
Right.
you never attended a meeting?
Does your precinct chair know you intend to run? I mean, those are kind of basic questions to those of us that have been in the field for a long time. But in our precinct, we had 2 people run last cycle that never bothered to tell us that they were running. I'm like, and we're the group in Dallas County that a couple of years ago, when we still had that award, got the award for the volunteer, the actual act, it was, our team was called the Get Her Done Team. And we knocked on every door and talked to just about every voter in some way, shape, or form at least 3 times. And if you're not asking for if you're not asking for the help that's already in place, you're reinventing the wheel, and then you're surprised when the learning curve doesn't work.
Some just don't know it, and I would say if you would send your additional questions to the Signal, and that way they can kind of all be compiled there. We can go back and look through the history and get all that, and she's gonna be compiling for this.
And a couple of people, like Dr. James Rogers, needs to be on the list of people we interview. And one of the things we're gonna find is that some of the people, their families were not supportive. And his family was kind of not available because between the time he decided to run and and when the primaries were over, his wife got pregnant and gave birth like a week before the election. You know? So you're a little less than available when you're 8.5 months pregnant. But there are other people, a while back, who ran a great candidate, but the only time we saw his wife was when she came to the office, he had an office, came to the office to get keys to the car because she had a flat.
Sometimes spouses don't like to be, you can't stand politics. Their spouse being in it because of the attacks that happen, and they know it from such a different angle that it really irritates them. They want to lash out, and they want to fight or flight.
Right.
And there's like my wife, when I was on city council, she was there the night that I was sworn in. She was there the night that when I lost the election. And those were the only 2 times she said in the chambers in there. Because even though she'd watch it on TV and stuff, she'd get blood boiled. Comments are made, and this and that stuff that she knew was not correct. And why did they do that? You know, and that's just at a very small local level. And so, you know, that's one thing I learned is not only as a candidate, but also actually in the office, your perspective on things change. And sometimes that change becomes even obvious to the outside world, to how you handle things, make decisions, and stuff, because you're starting to take in much more of a program than you are very focused on. I just need you to vote for me. That's all, you know. That's one deal. Now that you're elected, you've got to decide what's best for not only those who voted for you, but those who didn't vote for you. Yeah. And those who just stayed at home. It's still a whole population that you're responsible for. And too many times, those that voted for you that have a very narrow vision of what you should be doing and what you're doing like that, they get upset because you're making decisions or you're making comments to represent a lot more people of Florida with it. And they just absolutely don't like it, don't stand for it, you know, it's an all or nothing situation for them. And it's very difficult now to start even dealing with them because of that. So there's a lot of, your perspective changes once you move from being a candidate to an actual elected official. And you also lose a lot of abilities to voice your real opinion.
Oh yeah.
When I first became city councilman in my small community of Benbrook, they have the Texas group, the municipal league. They have a seminar for brand new elected officials. And the first thing that happens when the guy gets up there to speak, he's a lawyer. He said, "You guys just made the stupidest decision in your life to get elected." He says, "Now let's go through all the stuff you can no longer do. You're going to have to watch on this, or you're going to go to jail, or you're going to get sued." And there's a whole litany of stuff like that. And it's like, well, you know, if I was used to, you know, having every once in a while on Saturdays having breakfast and coffee with a bunch of the folks in the city, I can no longer do it because we would have quorum, and you can't do that. and we thought about moving to another place just outside the city limits. You can't do that either. So, I mean,
No, because
it's just,
people that are attending.
yeah. And, you know, these are people you've been dealing with for 5, 10, 15 years, and it's like, your whole world gets kind of shifted a little bit based upon the legal requirements that now become a part of it, that you have to watch out for. And those are the only legal requirements you just happen to know about.
Right.
You can so accidentally do other stuff that it's not even funny, that you can find out the hard way in lawsuits and in courts.
In Kennedy, I'm on the Board of Adjustments in Garland, and I know we went around with the city attorney there, we can't reply to a group email.
Absolutely not. You can go to jail real quick.
So part of that was secretary, they started putting this all in blind copy, so we couldn't just reply all.
Correct. Yeah. You have to learn how to technically do emails properly. I get frustrated when I see somebody that sits in an email that's copies it to a mile long, and somebody gets to reply all. Not wise. But there are issues like that I don't think a lot of people I know from even just talking with folks here on the SRC, they don't have a clue as to what it's like when you flip it and you actually become even just any kind of representative of any government that you're an elected body to. It can change the way you look and do things. The Open Meetings Act, all the fun stuff like that you do. So.
Well, that's when you get elected. That's after you're in office. But when you're a candidate, this is something that I found out.
They have a lot more voice than you do. So if you're already
I mean, when I was trying to decide if I actually wanted to run, because it was an SREC member that said you need to run, and I was like, well, I've never done this. I don't know. Let's sit down and talk. My wife, I was just like, all right, honey, this is what we're getting into. Thankfully, she was on board. But if you have a spouse that's not on board, you may want to consider not running.
Or just have them in the camera, just do them visually and have a canned response to why they're not present. They have other commitments, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, your family doesn't have to be actively involved in the campaign.
Right.
It's really you like the support. The campaign is really
well, but you're also
you can't have a family member announcing they're supporting your opponent.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. but you also have to realize that
or going to jail.
As a candidate, I thought, okay, great, I'm going to be under the microscope. They looked at not just me, but my family. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had an opponent who looked at my wife's business. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you investigating my wife's business?
Yes.
That has nothing to do with this.
And every day we go down the road with these little suckers, it's getting more and more detailed.
Absolutely.
With what you're doing. Right. It's tougher every day for a candidate to even present themselves as being semi-clean, even something that happened 20, 30 years ago.
How many of us want to be held responsible for things we did at 14?
Yeah.
And yet, everybody over 40 absolutely is, because it was recorded.
Yeah.
So, is there a new candidate, or so you think you want to be a candidate type of packet or something that we can put together?
Leadership Institute.
Right.
And some other groups that are good, and so they have some of these, but I don't think they're, what would be beneficial, in my opinion, would be something specific to Texas.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't need to be developing a full curriculum, that the party would need to do, but some items that, hey, we're in Texas, so, here's how we think. We lead the way. We like this. We do this. And get that flavor. One of the things that I struggled with, I have to get rewarded, was finding, good, reputable campaign staff, like a campaign manager, auditors, and things like that you need to have.
Treasurer.
Treasurer
that knows the rules.
Wouldn't it be great with all the influence in the SREC? That would be gold to a candidate to try to figure out, one, we can vet them, but two, once they're vetted, have a pool of possible campaign managers, treasurers that have the same heart, same mind, who want to help and be involved, and link them together. If you do that, that would be awesome.
But then you're endorsing people.
That's a perfect
Well,
one.
I've got one at a time, I got 3 people speaking and only have 2 ears. One brain to process.
But the county party would be an excellent repository to know people within the county, who could be good campaign managers and staff and treasurers and those who, if the county chair and their immediate staff can have that list and constantly ask their members if they're interested in doing things of that nature to be involved with other candidates would be a tremendous quick response. Because otherwise, you're really running it from a local standpoint. When you get into regional and statewide races, that's a whole different level of doing stuff.
Well, and I think, I like what you're saying, sorry to jump in, I know you were, but one of the things for, like at my level with the House District, right, my county, they were all semi-supportive. I had a lot of great support with them, and there were others that they loved the incumbent, they thought nothing was wrong, and they actually were the ones that I would have wanted to help my campaign. And I didn't get a whole lot of, I got support. I didn't get a ton of support from my county GOP. And they basically said, when the primary is over, then we're going to get behind the candidate because we're going to rally around that one for the party. It's like, okay, well, you're not worried about the draft. You're only worried about game time.
It's very difficult for a party to be able to make a choice in the primary.
Right.
Yeah, but to your point specifically about that, the county party can't get involved in the primary because there's people on both sides that both supporting will piss off the precinct chairs. So the primary, where it's contested, if it's a partisan race, they can't do it before. It's pretty much against the rules. It's not officially the rules, it's certainly the real rules that we follow. In terms of
legally they can, but you've got to be careful. If you're trying to build the party, you really don't want taking sides if you're the one that they have to come file with.
Yeah, it's such a huge problem.
But now precinct chairman, SRC,
What Mike
all
was
those are free
saying
to.
about resources, we actually been trying to do that in Dallas County 2 years ago at the municipal elections. We started compiling just a volunteer list of all the people that provide print services, all of the campaign managers, what are the pricing that they have, how good's their product, who does online stuff, who does texting, different services, and so we kind of have that in Dallas County some. I don't know if we've got it updated after the last general primary or the election in November, but that's a resource that we're trying to put together and maintain. And I think you're right, the county party is the best place to have that, and they just need to be in touch with all the campaigns and be aware of who's good, who isn't, and who's got the right passion. But that's also something that as an SRC, I found myself getting that question to candidates all the time, is who should I use for this, who should I use for that? And so you have to kind of try and be aware, but unless you're really working with campaigns, it's hard to really know, who's doing it right. There's a lot of campaign managers and consultants, they're in for the money, and maybe their advice isn't that good, or maybe they don't know the district, maybe they work on the big county like Dallas, maybe they work on the east side of the county and have one on the south side of the county. It's completely different ballgame. So you have to kind of really know who all the different players are. I think it's our job to know that into our counties, but it's also the county party is the right repository for that kind of information. When it comes down to funding, I think we don't raise much money. That's why I was asking you, and I was shocked that they were saying earlier that they were raising $2 million in Harris County up there, let's go over there or something. I think that the county party needs to have a staffer who helps campaigns generally, but you've got to get people, donors that are willing to pay for that. The pitch that we're trying to put together in Dallas is to raise money for that, to say, state level and above, everybody moves directly to the candidate. But below that, if you're not partisan races, school board, municipal races, etc., fund, which is where there's a lot of real value. They can't raise money independently, so therefore, if we raise money at the party level and have basically a campaign management operation in the county party that can serve multiple people, multiple candidates, then it actually becomes much more cost effective. It increases our ability to actually win some of those down ballot races. So that's a pitch that I think will resonate with donors, because they basically just still get money in Dallas if they think it's being used wisely, as long as they sort of know that there's a plan. They won't give money if they don't think there's a plan for their company. So pitch that in your county to donors that I think maybe will be a good response.
I think the gap, kind of like what you were saying, state house, state senate, that would be the gap. I would agree that county below, the county would be the go to. But once you go above that, now you're talking districts, and there's no real group, and we're going through censors right now on different elected officials because they weren't vetted in the primaries, so we can help ourselves by doing things like that up front. Say, okay, well, there are some candidates that are going to the primaries. What do they stand for? Let them do their thing and may the best person win, but they should each have that understanding of, okay, I'm from South Texas, I work with a guy from Dallas. Yep. So it's like, but he was all I could find. I was like, there's got to be more people here that do this.
But yeah, no, I love having, if you had a roster of people that you could pick and choose and work with that are vetted for and through the SRAC to work for and with candidates. It's like, look, we trust these people. These people are good because, I mean, as you said, there are some pretty shady consultants and folks out there that all they want is your money.
They don't care improve the quality of your candidate. Yeah, you earn it. That's the result.
Yeah.
If you do that, you either have to do one of two things. You have to have, and maybe both, have a disclaimer and have at least 2 representatives in each group. Because otherwise, if you recommend somebody and they're having a bad day, or they do a typo and the world blows up, you're responsible for their behavior if you recommended them. Whether you're responsible legally or not, you're responsible in the eyes of that person and every person they talk to.
Right. I don't know if it's a recommendation more than a database of these are the candidates, Republican candidates, and they won, and here's who their campaign managers are, and it's their business.
And then you can network and they say, okay, what happened in that race? You can look and see what the performance was. So that's kind of the way we're trying to construct.
I think that's a good direction. I think that would, for folks who've never run before but who have the capabilities, that would at least give them a really good starting point to understand, okay, I know a question to ask, I don't know who to ask it to.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's up to you. It's a big one, right? And network with whoever's put you up to this. And just network and ask questions as you go to try to figure out who that person is.
We're still friends, we still talk.
I thought the suggestion about Leadership Institute, I don't know how many other organizations, or I haven't done it with Leadership Institute. I know I've gone to their classes since I've been involved, 20 years more.
Christians Engaged has an institute.
So if you went to them and I'm a candidate, or us as a resource committee to help candidates, say, hey, here's my contact at Leadership Institute. Call them, give them your zip code. They'll see if they have any past graduates from your zip code that maybe can help your campaign.
Well, they're also going to want you to, because I did reach out to Leadership Institute, and the only way they would really work with me, I don't know, it's just the people I talked to, was if I took one of their courses.
So did you take the one here?
I did the one that was at home, because this was during COVID.
Okay. Well, they had one here. You had one here today.
Yes.
Yeah, we got ongoing one here.
I've been in Leadership Institute for, at least since I started the whole thought process, so for 3 years now. And I think they're very good, but they're general. they're general, they're just not, it's
Texas.
not specific to Texas, so there's a lot more research that we have to do to understand what are the specifics for Texas, in terms of law, in terms of finance, in terms of demographics. So, and that's okay, that's the candidate should be getting nothing to do with that, but I would think that if you want to make it educational for various candidates, especially if you're looking for Hispanic candidates down the valley, those type of things, you got help. And I think just connecting them with the right people would be a huge help. You know, because how do you fund this? How do you I can go through the classes, but that doesn't give me the right connections. But that won't.
Yeah, I get that, just generic, no one's endorsing, you just have maybe your county chair or, you know, in your precinct, put together a list of consultants, phone numbers, you know, once in Harris County, they'll have classes for candidates, just like a website that says this date, there's gonna be a class on, you know, candidates. Yeah, generic, not necessarily endorsement, but just generic.
If the party or some group, some official group has those kinds of classes, then the people who are interested in being employed by those candidates, if they're good business people, will show up to send a representative. And what better way to have a clue than to actually meet eyeball to eyeball, belly button to belly button?
Dallas County's put on a few of those things, we're going to invite a speaker and, like, here's how you decide to run for office, and here's how you actually execute once you decide to run for office. So that's kind of perfect.
So then great. So Dallas, you know, Harris, Bexar County, Travis, how do you get that, if your focus is in the valley and the rural district, how do you get that opportunity to the candidates who are thinking about doing it? Well, it could be Zoom, but can you, if you have just the data and reports, hey, county chairs, here's a group, if you have any candidates, here's a group of campaign managers or treasurers or whatever that these guys can link to, so that now you've just made a connection that's non-recommendations, right? You're not directing anything, but you're just creating that pool so that somebody like you or me or whoever is just interested. I can now have a list of people that I can call and start making contacts with and networking and understand what they're about and just doing that.
Has anybody else found that there's people that move in and out of this campaign manager, campaign role?
Yes.
So it's real fluid, and you gotta stay up to date, because I know some people in Dallas who, they've been Christian chairs for 15 years, like me, and a few years ago, they might have started up a campaign manager effort, thinking that they'll make more money doing that, and 2 years later, they're not doing it. Yeah, so it's hard to find the right people that are consistent with it, and you're right. It's very low. And part of it is the right positive.
Yeah, but I would argue, I'm sorry, Rich, I would argue that if I'm a campaign manager, that's my job, and I know the party has a pool of campaign managers, wouldn't I want to, hey, RPT, list me down, man, I'm still active, I'm still doing, I represent 10 Republicans, and my win-loss for what?
Let me go up front here and then Elaine can her.
One of the resources that could be useful maybe is teaching or providing like application forms for these resources. So, and references. So if I'm a campaign manager, which I'm not and never will be, but if I'm a campaign manager and I have a company and I go to you, Mike, I'd like to be your campaign manager. Okay, fill out an application and I'll call your references. It's a job.
Yeah.
But
the RPT could put that on their website or something, application forms.
Yeah, I actually did that. So one of my stories is I went to an LI event in Bexar County. It was a really good one. So folks, knew that I was, thinking about running. They approached me, and it just didn't there wasn't chemistry, so it didn't work out. But you know, it was skinny suit dudes, and you know, cowboy boots. I was like, man, I'm running in South Texas. I don't think this is gonna work out, man. You know, so it's just, you know, you try. So there's a little bit of that involved, but it's like, well, where do you go next? I don't know. That was my only out, right? So I'm just Googling and not really getting where it is.
Maybe there should be a candidate association, candidate resource association in the way that there's a Texas Realtors Association.
Maybe, but Matt's right, it's fluid. I mean, it's not a consistent business.
It's fluid, as we've heard, you know, all politics is local. That's why, like, for those on the signal list, Morgan sent out a list of some races that we need to look for candidates in. And in that, I think she asked it as a question, but I absolutely agree with her 100%. We need to be talking to SRECs, precinct chairmen, county chairs in those areas. Are there some good candidates? Who should we be talking to about providing some help? I don't see this committee as having money, but hopefully we can get them pointed in the right direction on resources. Like one of the candidates I know, he did real well in Collin County. I had known him for years outside of politics and had no idea he was interested. So when I found out he was running for state rep, I set up a meeting with me and him and Troy Jackson. And we just asked some questions and gave him some pointers and helped get him nudged in the right direction. Because I think there's a lot of candidates, you know, they get aggravated about something and they jump in there. Maybe they haven't done their homework and talked to their precinct chairman or even county chairman or anybody else.
Or attended a
Well,
school board meeting.
They need to hear that from someone. You know, have you done this? Well, that's not necessarily a showstopper, but there's some things you need to do.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. From a state rep perspective, I ran and I had never come down here. And then it was like, okay, I need to come down here. So I came down and sitting in the gallery and watching how things are done or not done, depending on what day it is. You know, it's eye-opening. And you're sitting there watching these runners and everybody just doing everything. What is going on? And so I had to turn to the people next to me who'd been there a lot. I'm like, what is happening? Aren't they supposed to be voting on something? And are they reading something? No, okay, well, they already read it. Now they're doing their little negotiations. And what can you give me? How can I said, is that what's going on? And they said, oh, it's all barter down there right now. You know, you're going to hear somebody back at a microphone. Here's what's going to happen. Here's this. And then you just watch them as they go around and do their things. And then someone will come back and then they'll say, okay, and then they.
County party is as the vice chair of internal affairs. Is I normally, they send almost all the judicial candidates. Because we have 50, 60 of them on every ballot. It's about 100. The only candidates that's larger are Dallas and Houston. So we have all these candidates. A lot of it, they're nothing but lawyers. And they have no idea how to really run a campaign. And for judicial candidates, their world is even smaller as far as being able to, the restrictions on how they raise funds, what, from where, what they can say, what they can do, places they can go, places they cannot go. But I work with them from almost an emotional standpoint in the beginning. Are you really ready for this? Because there's too many of them that think that's what they want to do next. And I said, you know, the biggest issue you're going to find, and I said, go talk to a judge, and I give them normal names of people who have just been elected in the cycle before. Ask them what it's like all of a sudden when they become a judge. They're used to being an advocate for one side. They can no longer do that. They have to sit in the center. They cannot help either side. So they're more, it's a frustration period of time until they get their mind reset to their advocate. Their perspective is the advocate for the law itself. And tell me your two stories, and we'll merge them together to see where we fit within the law. And I've had a lot of post conversations with the ones that talked to me at the very beginning as they started to run. I said, you're going to need to go to these clubs. These people could help you. In fact, I had one campaign manager I was in the event. He says, you know, you're taking money out of my back pocket. I said, why is that? He says, because you're giving them the same advice I charge them for. I said, well, sorry about that. And, but the thing is to help them, they need to, you have to tell them what they need to, what they really need to hear, not what they want to hear.
Yeah.
Because, and it goes back to if they're married, whatever, if there's anything in their past, whether it's a really ugly divorce, some of them had, you know, death of family members where they're taking care of elderly family members and all, how it's going to affect them in that world. When you have a conversation, and a little bit of depth back in there, because the consumption of their time means they're not going to be with that original support group. And sometimes they feel distant, and the support group feels like they just been abandoned.
Yeah.
So there's an emotional set to it that, unless they understand it in the very beginning as they start going down this process. And there's normally a point in time, I've had almost every one of them talk to me at the very beginning, about halfway through it, right? Especially right after they get through the primary, if they make it through the primary and successful there. They go, you were spot on, or just like, I was working so much with this stuff, I forgot, you know, this event with my wife and kid, and birthday, and somebody was really special to them, and I said, yeah, you're gonna have to make amends to that. You're gonna have to see how that's priority within you. But they need to understand also that it's a priority to you. It's part of the process you're having to go through to do this to the next level.
Well, and as a candidate, one of the things that you're tempted to do is pitch up to another candidate and have a concerted effort, a joint attack, if you will, into whatever. And I saw this in city council races. I saw this in school board races.
That's a common tactic that's really used a lot.
Right. Well, and
we do it with our judicial candidates. We'll put 10, 15 of them on the same ballot party, and all we finally allow the laws got changed 4 years ago to allow them to do that. And that's a great thing for them because they can pull their money together for door hangers and stuff like that. They all have the same basic message.
And as long as they're working together, that's a good thing. And we had, like a couple cycles ago, we had a school board election come up, and we had 3 individuals that were running against, 3 seated, or 2 seated and 1, open seat. And all 3 of them, they ran on the same platform, they ran the same race, everything was going great. Somebody got interviewed, and there was a statement made. Now all 3 of them were staying because of that statement. And they got labeled the slate of hate. And so all 3 of them, because they would show up everywhere together, it didn't matter, it was just one candidate that said it. All 3 of them got labeled, all 3 lost. So, that's the thing when we're talking to some of the candidates. I mean, I was, on the area, I ran into Fallon a lot. And Pat would tell me, he was just like, run your own race. He kept saying that, run your own race. And so I was running my own race. My opponent brought Pat Fallon into my campaign by throwing out an endorsement, which was only given if he was going to run unopposed. He said, otherwise, I don't want to be in your race, leave me out. So after his endorsement gets aired, he calls me up and he's like, what the heck? A little more colorful, because y'all know that. And I was just like, hey, I didn't do this. And he goes, no, the other guy did. He says, now I'm in your race. And he wasn't very happy about it, but that's the thing that
you say good. I guess that means you're endorsing me.
I did ask him that question, and he was just like, "No, I don't want to be in your race." He goes, I got your back, but apparently he's already posted my endorsement for him, so I can't do that. So you could endorse me as well, and that way it kind of negates. And he goes, "I don't want to be in your race," and I don't blame him. I mean,
my opponent brought you in my race.
I know.
Are you going to have him withdraw your endorsement? Or
Well,
endorse me?
Yeah.
So what happened?
No, so even when people asked for the endorsements to be withdrawn, he never withdrew them. And he still had them up and everything else, so it was a whole other thing. Anyway, so about hitching up, that's one thing that, because I thought, hey, yeah, this would be great. We get a couple of us to run, we can do this, we can do that.
Could be strength in numbers when you bring up a good point.
One
could be brought
person
down
says
the
one
baggage
thing.
of another one that you're doing.
Yeah. So that could be something that, if we do put together, or if you guys do put together a candidate packet or info sheet or something, or program or what have you, it's like, look, you may be tempted, this is on you, and there's great positives to it. There's also some negatives. So, you know, we have to show the pros and cons.
What you just brought up is a very good point. And one thing that has to happen with those candidates who are trying to, each other's trying to rise up with us, they have got to sit down in a room with just them and no one else, no recordings, and have some very frank discussions about their backgrounds, their views, and what they're doing. Because if you get one of them, I know a case where a person had, did it the right way, he had a very short temper. And that is one thing that will just destroy a group candidate, which is like you're saying there. But these people, if they don't know that, and they accidentally trigger it without even thinking about it, the results can be disastrous. I mean, you can flush a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy real quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes can't do it.
No, but we're doing local government. First of all, backing up, in our county, Harris County, when we have multiple Republicans in a race, we'll go to the CEC and we will endorse, especially in school board races. And so when the county will endorse, that helps a lot. So we'll have the county endorsement, and now on local government, the party is now going to endorse school board candidates, but they won't endorse unless the county has endorsed. So that's a lot of.
One thing that our county, Tarrant County, Rick Martin started doing, and it's incredibly effective on these nonpartisan races, the school boards, city councils, and stuff like that. We've taken the entire list of people, the candidates, and we put out what their voting record is.
Yeah.
And just leave it at that. Good, bad, in between, Democrat, Republican, every candidate that's on that ballot. Let the people in that area know, start making an informed decision. If you know, this person you might like and you realize they voted in the last 4 Democratic races.
Yeah, we do that, yeah.
And it's like, wow, I would have never thought that, you know, listen to that, you know, they would be more in line with the Republican, and vice versa. So it happens both ways. So it starts to open up some people's minds, and it's a way of getting subtle information out there to start moving things in that direction.
Yeah.
And,
we had that in a huge race.
It's a lot of effort to go
County.
back and find, you know, the last 10 years or 20 years of their voting record.
Yeah, for county judge and one of the leading contenders, when you start looking at his donation, he said, you know, he was given to AOC and Lena Hidalgo and, and so all
That's
the
even another one. What's even worse is when they get there and their voting record is 0. They never voted in an election.
Yeah, yeah.
And they've been registered for 10 years, but they've never voted in a local election, a presidential election, or anything like that. So it's eye-opening to a lot of folks to do that. And that's a simple thing that I think is a good thing for the candidates to do.
When he goes back, I'm gonna get to you in just a second, Eli. I'm gonna, those of us in here that have been candidates, I'm gonna ask y'all what was something that you really could have been benefited by someone telling you, and maybe what the best advice you received as a candidate was. So be thinking about that. And then as a group, I'm on local government too, and I think they go hand in hand with this committee. Let's try and focus on the candidate development or recruitment for what time we have left.
Okay.
Elaine?
I was just gonna ask, we kind of got in the weeds here, and you said there were 3 things on our agenda, and this is number 2. What's number 3?
Good question.
So I want to make sure we at least touch on the 3 things she assigned us to do today.
Last call for questions to be on the survey. Somebody open that for Dennis. He's trying to come back. A final compound list of candidates that we need to interview, win or lose, and at different levels. And I thought it was 3, but it's really not, because she's asking about getting the county chairs and SRECs about candidates. For me, I don't think that. Shout me down if I'm wrong, but that should be a given. I mean, we need their input. I'm not going to know the best people in Harris County to try and recruit. But if I reach out to Deborah and some others, they know, hey, Bruce, we got to try and recruit this person. either they ran before, or maybe they were on city council or school board, we want to be state rep now, whatever it is. And that's primarily it. So now we get to what.
While we were talking about all that, I reached out to Aaron Gonzalez, who I knew would answer relatively quickly. His brother, Pastor Mark Gonzalez, who many of us may know that name because he was on the list of the pastors that prayed over Trump during the election. And he became the Hispanic coordinator. His committee, or his group, is called Hispanic Action Network, HAN, and they do some training, but they also do introductions and church interventions. So, Pastor Mark Gonzalez, Hispanic Action Network. And they have well over 1,000 pastors involved in their community nationwide. And he's in Dallas.
Hispanic
Action Network, HAN. His brother Aaron is one of the pastors at, what's it called? Church, it's not called Prayer Mountain Church, what's it really called? If you look up Prayer Mountain Church, you'll get it probably.
Sure. We have a little bit over 15 minutes left, so I'm gonna go, Dennis, as I mentioned to you. You just ran for state rep in a primary, had a lot of grassroots support. Of course, you didn't win the primary. What is something you wish someone would have came and told you, and then what is some of the best advice you did receive that you're so glad you got it?
Wow. Things I didn't know in the beginning. I mean, when you first do your treasurer filing and then you're going to go down with the GOP, there's still a lot of questions, but there's also a lot of unknowns. And as you're going, you start asking, okay, where can I put signs? Where can I get signs made? Who's the best one to do this? Where do I get good print work done? Do the designers do it? Do I have to do it? Do I have to hire somebody? What's going on? So I mean, there was a lot of the basics behind it, and it seemed like you're a hamster in a wheel in the beginning. All you're doing is running. There's not a lot getting done. And the whole time you're running, you're just watching money flow out, and you don't even know really how to fundraise. You're asking people, and you don't have anyone, because if you don't have a campaign manager or a team, and I didn't, and I should have had somebody sit me down and go, you need a team. You need a campaign manager to do X, Y, and Z. You need a fundraising committee or a finance manager who's going to do this, this, and this. You need someone that's going to do your social media, going to do your physical marketing, going to do, and because it does take a team to do this.
Yes.
And I didn't.
As a candidate, you need to focus on this.
And right, because I was the one trying to put together, and you also need someone to help you write your scripts, your speeches. You got to have your 30-second, your 90-second, your 2-minute, right? Plus, you should have a 5-minute canned in case you go to a forum or something and there's extra time. So you got to have those things canned. Well, I'm writing those myself, and I'm writing them the way I thought it sounded good, and then my wife would go, oh, no, let's do this. And, so you're sitting there doing this, and you're like, okay. But then people come to you and go, well, I really like what you said about this, but you really didn't speak to me because you didn't say, or whatever. So, I mean, having that level of knowledge going into it, and knowing that there are people that can help you from a team perspective. I almost want to say, to the point that was made earlier, is instead of just having a list and being able to pick and choose, have a group that does. In our group, here's what we have. We have your digital marketing run by a millennial. I'll tell you right now, if somebody told me they had digital marketing run by a millennial, I'd find the money to pay for it. Because millennials know how to run the digital aspect better than pretty much anybody that's gone to college for digital marketing. So I'd be all over that. Same thing with, on the finance side, how to raise money, where are you getting it? Because I've talked to 6 different people and heard 6 different finance fundraising campaign strategies. You want a email, you want a text stream, you want a, get out and knock on doors, you want to do, a mailer asking for donations. At the end of every video, you want to ask for a donation. I've heard it all. And they all say, well, the other ones don't work. Or it kind of works, and this is the one that works. But you really need someone to help you focus and strategize, because I felt like
felt like that was, you know, shooting a shotgun. It was just, everything was going everywhere.
You saying that, it sounds like it might even be good too, then to follow up with them, well, how much money have you helped raise using that technique?
Right? Sure.
Give me some credibility, because I might have ideas, but have I raised any money doing it?
Well,
No, but I think it'd be good for you.
So I asked that when the text one
Done it.
came up. Yeah, when the text one came up, I said, well, how much money are you actually raising? I mean, come on, you know, if I get a text for somebody asking me for money, I'm not gonna send them $1,000, you know, $100 even. I might send $10 to a charity or something like that, but for the most part, no, I wouldn't do it. Oh, well, you know, if you take a look at Obama's campaign and Beto's campaign, I'm like, okay, hello, Republican here. I don't care about the
Right.
Democrats. And they're like, yeah, well, if you look at their finance report, they had hundreds of thousands of $3 donations that were happening every month. It was just $3 a month. That's all we're asking you for. We're not asking you for $3,000. We're asking you for $3 a month. Well, if you think about it mathematically, that creates a steady stream. You get 1,000 people, it's $3 grand a month. You get 100,000 people, it's $300,000 a month at $3 a month. Okay, well, my district has 118,000 people in it, of which there's only about 90,000 registered voters. I'm not going to make a ton of money if I ask everybody for $3, $5, right? I mean, because I'm only going to get maybe 10% that would even bother to reply to that. But you know, so strategies like that, and strategies are huge. Strategy consultant, the management. I mean, we can go down that whole list, right? Of everybody we need.
I just want to point out that what you just said about the $3 contribution to the large number of people on a monthly basis, that also commits them to go to the ballot.
Exactly. You
Right.
want those $3 donors. It doesn't matter if they only give you $3 once. If they give you money, they're gonna come vote for you.
Right.
And that's what you want. You want that commitment, whether they give you $10, whether they give you $10,000, if they give you a dime, they commit themselves to you.
Right.
And then they know your name, and they'll go tell their neighbors. And what you say is, give me $3, get your neighbor to give you $3.
It just comes to mind.
And give everybody credit. Everybody needs to have credit.
Oh, yeah.
Because everybody's got a sphere of influence.
Absolutely. One thing
And write them a letter.
I was just going to say, what I did to everybody that sent a campaign contribution into my campaign, and I did this to everybody. I didn't care if it was $5 or if it was $500 or more. Handwritten thank you.
Yes, yes.
And it was mailed. You know, and I had people, because in the beginning, we didn't bother to do a stamp or return or whatever. It just said, you know, thank you very much for the contribution. But I would do it as Sunday was my thank you card day. And I would sit down, we'd go to a little winery, wife and I like, and we would sit there. And we had people that came by, they were supporters of the campaign. And they saw me with this stack of, Lord, what are you doing? I said, well, today's thank you card day. And they're like, what do you mean? And I said, I'm writing thank you notes to everybody that contributed to the campaign. And they just sat there in total disbelief. You literally are handwriting all of these. And I said, yeah. I mean, people want that. I know that when I do something and I get a thank you, or I get, you know, heck, I'm going to do it again, or I'm going to feel really good about that. And so that was, yes, absolutely. Sorry.
Dennis, what was the best advice you got?
Best advice was, it's going to sound weird. You're not going to know what to expect, but you have to expect everything. That was literally the best advice because I didn't know what to expect. I had ideas, you know, and you can watch the movies and TV shows and things like that. It's nothing like it. And when you get out there, like I got to meet, you know, because I go up into Collin County through District 33, because it's the southern part, but also I have everybody from all over Collin County. Shaheen, Noble, you know, Frazier, you know, we get all of them in there. I got to meet them and talk to them. Well, some of these are incumbents. I got to find out more about what was happening down in Austin, down here, than I ever knew, just by saying, you know, hey, look, you know, this is where I stand on the issues. I'm really curious. I noticed you didn't support this. Why not? And I got that one-on-one time. Now I'm a candidate. I'm not running against them. So I'm getting kind of an unfiltered, but I know they're still hiding something, you know, response. And it was really interesting to have that. But, you know, expect to be blindsided by people claiming to be, you know, Democrat, or claiming to be a Republican when they're actually a Democrat, or, you know, I'm not a Republican, but I'm an independent, I straddle that line, and I only vote on the issues, and, okay, well, how do you respond to these people, right? You know, sometimes they just want brute force. They just want that honest, unfettered answer.
I have a question. It's at our level, it's almost like we have to almost just do something very generic because every county is different. In my county, you know, like one Spring Branch where I live, we have 1,500 moms and a pipeline that walk. And it's taken off into the other counties. So we know where to go there. And another thing, that's what my husband loves to do is what he can do, and that's support. And I was texting him last night, and I said, you know, he said, oh, I'm at somebody's house because there's a fundraiser for Van Dyke. Is that your area? Beth Van Dyke, is that your area? And I'm like, I'm going, honey, do we not have enough in Harris County, right? So Beth Van Dyke has gone into Harris County, and there's a fundraiser at someone's home. And then I'll just make this real quick, because we used to do dinners where we would pull all the precinct chairs for a candidate we liked to a dinner. But we found out that it was much less costly to do taco trucks. So we get the Mexican food restaurants, and they'll come out on a block walk in a neighborhood and do tacos and, you know, food, and it's all, you know, it's all free. And then you pull in your neighborhood. So that's a more inexpensive way than to have dinners. But yeah, every county is so different. You don't know what you have equipped, and so.
I agree, that's why we need to talk to local people when we're looking, and as this committee, if we're doing candidate development and recruitment, we actually must talk to local, find out, I think. Too many things are different. What works in Dallas County or doesn't work in Dallas County may work in the valley.
Nothing works in Dallas County.
Well, but
We
to this
work.
point also, and this goes to what you were saying, yeah, we can have a generic, but it needs to be Texas generic.
Yeah.
It has to stay Texas, or, you know.
Barbecue.
Yeah, the universal thing.
What about another past candidate? I think I see one in a white shirt. What's something you wish someone would have told you?
Hey, these are some good campaign managers. It's the same, along the same lines, Dennis, right? Just along the same lines he said, it's like, hey, you're gonna need to have a campaign manager, maybe a strategist who comes in every so often. You need a good treasurer. And here are some good folks, you know, that you can really tap into, and then just let people know. I can write the speeches, I can do all that stuff, but man, I suck at Facebook. I suck at some of these, but I know they're important. Right? I'm not a media guy, but I know it's important. Right? How do I get that out there? Those are the type of things that I think that could really accelerate. And I think the best advice I had was, hey man, be yourself. I had another candidate said, man, you got a great story. Be yourself, be who you are, stay true to who you are. Don't try to shift, because there's going to be a lot of shifting sands around you. Don't do that. Just stay steady. You know, steady as she goes, like we said in the Navy, and be yourself. So, you know, it worked out. I was a nobody. Kept coming in and got nearly 40% of the voting elections. It was okay, but I can't help but think I had the right staff around me and not having to churn up front, and we could have really accelerated our campaign. It would have been a little bit stronger. But it's all good. I mean, I'm just happy to be a part of the process. It's awesome. It's good to see. And you know, I've mentioned before, Mountain Valley, our district, we're seeing more and more Hispanics, more and more women, more and more every Republican, every seat. Most every seat is now being contested, right? So it's not just a Democrat show. Now we're starting to see young Republicans, young folks, women, Hispanics, everybody's jumping in now for the right reasons. That's very, very promising. Yeah, very promising.
I would think that one of the biggest things we need to do as a party, as the SRAC, and to help candidates is, it is local, and I agree, it's got to start at the local level because they're running on a local level. But we need to be able to, we need to have the information from our counties of who runs the YR Club, who runs the YCT Club, who runs all the different TFRW clubs, and we should be sending those candidates around. That's their first round to get vetted, is to just go to those clubs. And if they can't go to a TFRW club and win those ladies over, they don't need to be running. And if they can't get go to a YR meeting and talk to the YRs and say, this is what I'm doing, this is what I wanna do, and can't get one YR to step up and say, I'll run your social media for you, then maybe they need to rethink running. And so that's the place to start vetting them, is before they even really start running, get them to go out and talk to the clubs and see if they're even a viable candidate, because I think a lot of people are told, yeah, go ahead and run, why not? You're a viable, and they're not viable candidates. They don't know how to go to the podium. They've never been to Austin. They don't know how the ledge runs, if that's what they're running for. Or they're running for judge and they've never actually sat through a judicial campaign and haven't read the judicial code of ethics. You know, so they need to go through some of that.
I like that. If you're real busy and you have several candidates going to you, I think having that and give it to them, it's like, here, Jan, here's all the local clubs.
Right.
When they meet, I want you to make the rounds of every one of them,
And
and then let's meet again.
Right.
I don't want to talk to you till you do it.
Right, that's good.
And Dallas County
And then if
does
they're proven, if
need
they at least do that,
Yeah.
Dallas-
Because if they're not willing to go out and do all that, then when are they gonna do all the block walking? And there is nothing more that, I mean, boots on the ground mean everything, and you can have 1,000 moms walk for you, but the candidate knocking on your door means so much more.
We did it.
like you said, they need to sit in and observe something, you know, of what they want to do.
Well, one
Remember
thing
when I ran for JP, I sit in on one and I was there the whole day, and the JP got through all the cases and he looks at me and, sir, I noticed you've been here, you have cases or something? I said, no, my TV's broke, but I heard this was pretty good drama, so I he cracked him up, he was tickled to death.
Yeah, one thing I learned, and I learned this actually from another district, and the other candidate told me, he said, look, if you're gonna walk an area, he says, you get a team to a block walk with you, and you go down either on one of the sidewalks or whatever, and you're staying together as a group, and everybody's knocking on doors, and while they're doing their little door pitch, and they got the flyer, hey, if you wanna meet the candidate, he's right over here, let me get him for you. And you just have a quick text string that you contacted. I mean, this could be something that we teach everybody that we have as a viable candidate, right? It's like, hey, you wanna make the most of your block walking? Because you're absolutely right. If a person doesn't get to meet the candidate, it's just a piece of paper.
Again, it's the investment. I have to talk to you, I know you, I'm more invested.
Yeah. I had one lady, she looked me square in the eyes and told me flat out, she goes, if you were not standing here today, I would not vote for you. She goes, I'll tell you right now, I've never seen the other guy.
Right.
I'll never vote for him.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why those taco trucks in neighborhoods are so good. Because the neighborhood, another thing that Dennis said he wasn't aware of, but I subscribe to Project Broadcast. It's $30 a month. And so what you do is, it's so easy, once you set it up, you get your list of phone numbers and you text whatever message. You know, I'm gonna be speaking in this area to meet you, or just a, you know, it's a fast way to get out messages to all of your base. Now, I got my phone number through my county. So I'll have like all the phone numbers, and like I live in SD 133, so whenever we had our rep, Amano and Shelley Barano running against each other, I got all the phone numbers on 133, and I would text for my pretend that I want it. But it was a quick, fast way. It's only $30 a month, and you import the phone numbers, and you get out messages. So, you know, that's a good tool. Project Broadcast.
Project Broadcast. It's text message.
Yeah, it's a texting service. $30.
Yeah, well, I know there's legislation that is geared towards telemarketing texting, so that may be something going away, or restrictions.
Well, this was,
Yeah, probably be one of those things that you can opt out of.
Sure. Project
Broadcast.
Broadcast.
Well, I realize, I mean, TFRW does more calls for candidates than any other group in the state. They did over 1 million calls for candidates in the state. They did almost 2 million calls for California from here. So, I mean, if you could hook in with TFRW, you get the calls made.
They also did a lot of voter registration,
Yeah.
because I was helping with that project, and
Yeah, the PDP was great.
found a couple that was already registered. I don't know why they were on there, but it worked out great, because I recruited both of them to go be election judges.
Yeah.
My husband and wife had
That is
served in
not
two
a
different,
call.
No, that's
different
good.
precincts, and they ran the election.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad they were on there. I'm not worried about not registering. Anything else? We're about out of time, and someone else may be getting in here for the next meeting. Yes, Karen?
I'm not a member of the committee, but I've had a request. We have a candidate recruitment and development committee in Bear County in San Antonio. And they were asking me, well, is there a guide or manual for how?
Missed that part.
If I was me asking, I was at the Bear County, I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, so wanting one, we need it.
Sorry, Karen, what's the ask on that? Bear County has one. What was the ask?
They have the committee. Now they want to know how to do it. Train candidates and recruit candidates. So is there any publication you can put out or anything?
We don't have it yet, but I think that's part of the charter of what we're trying to put together as resources.
Because they're good folks on this committee, they're just trying to figure it out from scratch. And I'm sure somebody's recruited candidates before.
I'll mention that and see what we can do specifically to ones like that, maybe before we finish.
Okay.
James, move up.
I don't know. I'm gonna meet every week on the Zoom call, so same time as we've been meeting, although since we are an hour early for El Paso, would anyone entertain if we moved it towards 5 o'clock your time, 6 o'clock our time? Would anybody object to that? Would that make it better? For me, that would be better. Okay, so let's do that.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so your week meetings to,
We're on Texas time, I don't know what the rest of you guys are on. Central, I think.
So we'll move those to 6. And that'll be every Tuesday. Yeah. From here, you're coming for the wrong week.
Wrong day.
So that'll go on probably for rest of session.
So Matt, is somebody gonna be sending out an invite to adjust it? Okay.
That's on me. Okay. The Lynch Council deadline has passed, so we still have until the 10th, a week today, to submit any bills. What that means is that, what that means, just means that they won't work on them. So you submit it, or get somebody to submit it, basically just be in whatever format you want. My understanding is that it can still get heard, but if you don't format it just right, then it's simply a point of order and it'll get knocked out. So you're still working on anything, the Lynch Council doesn't have it, just be real careful about the format. They try to find, is there anybody that we know that's a former Lynch Council employee that might help us? Anybody? Does anybody still have a bill they're working on? I have one. Okay. All right, so this doesn't apply to them. Okay, so there's a week left to file bills. Everybody's getting Tom's worksheets, and I've asked him, I think you and Carmen and Adolfo both sent in there this last week.
I still have to send mine.
Okay.
Mine and Adolfo's are nearly identical.
Okay, okay. And to check to see if put in right, update on the sheet?
I did not. He said he was gonna add them, I didn't check.
He's pretty good at that,
Yeah.
so it's probably, there's a good. I will ask a question, I don't know on one, maybe two, there was a question, you put in, I guess there's a question or a debatable item in one of the cells. How are we going to address, like, if we have a question? Are we gonna address that, debate that in this committee?
It's in Tom's spreadsheet.
Yes.
You say it's in one of the cells?
Yes.
But it's comments that I wrote, I think you're talking about.
That is correct.
Yes, because when I went through and looked at it, I read it, and I read the document itself, and I had questions because I like the concept, but I'm not sure I like the words. And so I'm concerned about how the wording is going to be before I would decide whether I support it or not. And I don't know how far we can go with that. But, words have consequences. And so when I read a lot of this stuff, I think it's too broad, there's too much risk involved. And that was one of those, I liked the idea of wording.
So I read after you wrote that, I did the same. I read it, I was like, I agree with what he's saying. So my question now is, how do we address that? What's the mechanism to address it?
So there's a couple ways that you can address it. First way is you call, offer the bill, or email him, probably is better. Outline your concerns, maybe suggest additional languages or additional language changes, and see if he's willing to accept that. So it's probably a phone call and then an email with a follow-up phone call with offer the bill. This is just kind of work the bill and see if he'll pay attention to what you have to say. For our purposes internally, what we should probably do is simply make the description, because Tom notes that Platt is being watched by platform, or he has it listed as platform, that column. And then there's another column where you should be putting, support, oppose, whatever. So we'll put watch in there if you're waiting to see if the language changes as it goes through the process. So I would just make sure that Tom knows that that's a bill you're watching, you can share questions on the language, and then you just wait to see what happens. So that this is whether or not eventually you decide to support it or decide to oppose it, or just pull it. Okay. So that actually kind of brings up a point that Carmen and I were talking about earlier. We're kind of turning into maybe legislative priorities light, because we're doing all the same stuff that they are. And I was thinking this week, as I was sort of planning out the meeting, we've all been pushing our bills over the top and getting them on the list, and we've all got everything. We got our section of the platform that we have an opinion on, whether it's in favor, against, or watching. Well, what does that mean? Where are we going at with that? And the next step really is to do the same thing that they're doing, which is we as a body, in our weekly meetings, need to start reviewing bills and talking about the language about why, if you put it on the list, if you're in favor of it, and then taking it up to see if we all agree with it, which means we're doing the same thing that they're doing. Maybe that's part of what we're supposed to do. I think that's kind of the direction that one of us to go. It's not when we originally got together what I thought we were going to do, which is advocate for the platform as a whole to legislators and their staff, and what we're talking about doing in terms of education outside the legislature, parties and things like that. So I think for the duration of the legislative cycle, I think this is kind of going to be our job, is to advocate for the platform to the legislature. We'll take a different approach in terms of how we approach them, encourage them, or let them know that we're supporting bills, as opposed to saying, well, you got to do it this way. Unless I'm missing something, or unless you guys have some different ideas, I kind of think that's where we're going.
I would make a suggestion, instead of becoming LP Light or 2.0, so we're trying to push the whole platform and advocate for it. So one thing I'm going to do, and I think might be a good idea, is whatever section of the platform we're in charge of, let's try to meet with that committee. If a Republican is the committee chair that oversees that, let's meet with them and say, hey, you know, what are you trying to get accomplished this session? Well, this is what is in our platform, what we would like to see done, and we, you know, just build that relationship and work together. That way we're advocating for the platform to them. We're giving them ammunition. Hey, you're trying to do that, and look, it's in our platform already, so you can use that. And, you know, I would really like this bill, the party would like this bill, could you help move that along as well? You know, it's a little trade-off, it builds a relationship, but we're not just picking, approving bills and saying, trying to get them done. So that's
Picking winners and losers.
right. I mean, that's LP's job, is to focus on the priorities. Our job is to kind of just advocate for the platform as a whole. So I think that approach might be a little better than picking and approving bills and trying to get them passed.
And I do worry, feel free to provide feedback on this, because I do want to hear what you guys' thoughts, but we're in danger, I think, of having LP go in to folks and say, well, here's our 8 priorities and our 25 bills or how many bills they're actually working on. And then we're right behind them saying, well, here's our other 320 priorities, and here's the 70 bills or the 100 bills that we want you to work on. And so it's just like another big monster coming in behind LP, and I think it's going to overwhelm people or cause them to zone out, or it might dilute the efforts of legislative priorities, which I don't want to do. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, I think it's going to happen that same way.
I sat in on their meeting the other day, and I was impressed with what they were doing a good job. They handled it with helping. And I had the same reaction that there's a lot of overlap between what we're doing and what they're doing. And my thought at the time was, I had done was that maybe we, and it was because I was doing some outreach to make sure that we're sending the same message. So somehow that needs to be done. We figure out who to talk to on that committee, or we're pretty well defined in the type of structure. But I think we need to make sure that we are on the same page going forward. I've got an example. I think you brought up Moody's. He added a bill. Moody's Democrats don't have a bill passed, but he has one proposed bill that is comes under board security. And I read that. He's an attorney, okay? And so his bill is written, you probably need to go to 4 or 5, whatever, off the top of my head, existing legislation to even understand what he's asking for. So then I went back and read another one by him, because I wanted to see, and there was another one. And I think what he's doing is trying to, on this other one, he's trying to reduce penalties, prison terms. But it's hard to tell because of the way he writes it. And he says, well, you gotta do this, it relates to this, and this part section of that one. And I mean, it's a big circle, but I think that's what he's, and what I'm concerned about on that one, 2019, I think, is that he's trying to eliminate liability, I think, and this is what concerns me, he's trying to eliminate liability for border organizations that are helping illegals.
Right. So in terms of platform advocacy, we could be calling the committee chair and say, don't vote for this because this is what we do.
Well, and I think that's where he's going. That's why I need somebody else to read the thing. And I like that. I mean, I think if they're breaking the law, which they are, we need to make sure that's the case. And we need to say, yep, I will support this bill.
It may be enough for us to have that suspicion and to raise the flag, as opposed to being able to go with a definitive answer that says, I've read all the reference sections and this is what he is doing. Making an affirmative statement like that, just because we'll let them do it. Say, hey, we think this is what's happening. You guys read it and tell us it's right.
I sent him an email on both of those and asked him to explain it to me. I haven't heard anything back yet.
Because he's your
and I agree with you, but he knows where I stand too.
I think that's a very important point that Dr. makes, is that we have to be careful, because when this is complicated, and we don't necessarily know or understand the background on all these bills. They may sound good, but we need to go in, establish relationships, and learn more about what's going on and why we're doing it. So I spent Monday and Tuesday at the Capitol both days. I probably lobbied with about 20 different House members and senators combined across the 2 days. Largely for vaccine mandates, but for other things too. And I got an email from an activist group outside of RPT, a conservative activist group, who opposed a bill that my senator of SD 17 had written and put forth, and it was like, action alert, we oppose this bill, start calling everybody, and do this. I didn't know the group that was putting it out. I do know people in my senator's office because I've cultivated relationships with them. And I learned the hard way not to go in like this, to go in and, visit with them and try to find areas of agreement and, take cookies once in a while and develop a relationship with them. You'll get a lot farther than you will making phone calls to oppose something that you got an email, signal of. But I was able to send this email alert that was opposing the bill to her staffers. And they're like, we had no idea that anybody opposed this bill. And so they asked me, who do we contact? Well, I don't know who this group is, but I'm on SREC. So I sent out a message to SREC, hey, who knows who's in charge of this? And eventually I found out who was in charge of the contact number. I sent it to the staffers at our office, and now they've made a contact and they can visit over their area of disagreement. And apparently it had something to do with unintended consequences that they were worried about in the conversation that were taking place. So I kind of see that sort of thing as being what this committee is about. It was one of our platform issues, actually, I think it was an LP issue. And I was able to alert some people because of connections that I have and I've made without offending anybody, but making a conversation happen.
Did you get kudos from the staff?
I did. I got kudos from the staff, and I got kudos from the people that were, they weren't mad. They just wanted to do it. They had no idea who was opposing them. It was kind of like a 911 alert went out, and they were caught off guard by it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the outcome of that is. I'm not in the middle of negotiations, but I was able to make a connection. So if I needed something that was happening to the rep from Gail's area, and she knew somebody that I didn't know, I think a lot of this is networking to work on our platform issues, because this is a lot of stuff in the platform. It's not as focused as LP is.
Yeah, that's the problem. And that's really why we picked a few things that we wanted to work on, is to try to narrow it down from the 300 that is impossible for our little group to focus on. You can't focus on 300 days. So.
Yeah, you can't, and you've got to pick and choose, and you kind of got to be aware of what's going on, because sometimes things come up that you aren't aware of, or that you maybe had a vague awareness of, and it becomes an issue, and you just kind of got to keep your eyes open and go talk to people. I learned more talking to reps at the Capitol that I just happened to run into in the hall. I said, hey, can you talk to me for 5 minutes? Found out all kinds of things. Things are going to subcommittee. They're talking to somebody in the Senate that they're going to get in committee and combine efforts and co-sponsor things in both houses. And I mean, it's important to make those contacts. It's important to go to the Capitol and not just be on the phone, not just send emails, or not just.
Did anybody go to the LP thing yesterday? Attorney today, how was that? You need something?
Excuse me, Becky, they're doing your resolution and they're holding that for you.
Your excuse.
We will send her back.
Please do.
Yes, when you said that LP, the subcommittee met at the RPC headquarters yesterday.
So how was it? When we went to the news, how was it?
Well, it's exciting. I'm still getting oriented to the Capitol and trying to figure out how to find the offices of the different reps and senators. But, I sat in on the state affairs committee meeting where they're addressing that. SB 147, they had like 160 Chinese people there, against the bill. So, it was interesting.
160 Chinese people. Is that who is doing all the yelling? Is it them that were doing the yelling?
Well, it was very civil, but they were all testifying against the bill, and, felt it was racist, when against their constitutional rights, it's making them second-class citizens, and they're taking it personally, that now they won't be able to go purchase a home. And they tried to explain to them that this doesn't affect American citizens.
They're here illegally, then, yeah, it could be strong.
But they're still taking offense to it, I went to Senator Duffman's office and, Representative Troxler's office, and just tried to get oriented and, learning the maps and where everybody's office is now, so I can put a plan of attack together the next time I come and be able to move around a little easier. It's a very complicated place. First time around.
It's a big racket. It's a racket offices that they built.
Yeah. Well, I did go, and, because I'm familiar, because I've been doing this with Free Cycles, right? Tom and I took 3 people with us to show them around and show kind of what we did. And then they were able to go out by themselves so that we multiplied rather than zero.
Go forward and multiply.
Yeah, and that's really good. And Tony, what's Tony's name? Huh? Tinderhoff? No, one of our members, Tony. Trevino.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say Trevino, no. We met with Ryan Gillen, who is her state rep, and we got ushered right in with him. He spent 30 minutes with us. It was a great conversation to have that kind of thing. It was her first time in the Capitol, but all that she knew. Anyway, that was, and we had conversations with the reps. I can't tell you how successful it was as we walked in the door, that we've never had that kind of opportunity before to actually do it direct. But I will tell you that the people who came late, who weren't there right when Jill decided to sit, they came in and they didn't know what to do because nobody was left. So there is some learning curve here of how to do this successfully. I love the whole idea of the legislative, SRC legislative day. I thought that was really good. And we need to be there as friendly, as how can we help you kind of thing, as we are about pushing our own stuff. It's a conversation.
I know we have tremendous, I don't know, it's not, maybe it's all a little defensive, because it seems like from their perspective, everybody that walks in wants something from them. So we come in there and say, hey, with the party, we want to just talk about ways we can help, then you can see the attitude change. So you should say, on the campus.
Yeah, we have nice periods. I spent January 24th and had the legislative briefing of some kind. I spent that day going around. I had a law that I wanted someone to pick up and pole pads. The short story is that they have to update the time and fashion or they don't serve the purpose. And we have problems, especially in Harrison County, but also Missouri County. Losing connectivity, you know, from, you got that video going around from Dallas County. Those being added at the last minute. And so I wanted somebody to use people law, to write a law that says, you have to maintain, they have to update, so say, within 10 minutes, we're checking to maintain certification. And so I went around beating the bushes, I went to everybody who was on the elections committee, the House side, I went to some of the state affairs, the Republicans, and I got Dennis Paul, who's not on any of those committees, finds you write a bill. Right to that point, it doesn't do exactly what I wanted to do. It gives them a couple of cycles and then assesses a fine. I wanted to do certification. Also, Swanson has a bill that's got a bunch of stuff in it, some poll watchers, some stuff the other, and sandwiched in there is also a section pretty much mirroring what Paul said. And so then I took Paul's bill and went to Middleton's office, the Senate side, and they already nibbled at me some time ago. They called for some more details. I said, here's the bill. You know, it needs a response. You know? And so I sat in front of it. And I found that, you know, you go to these people, yeah, and don't be afraid to talk to the staffers. Because the staffers are the ones that do the yeah. And talk to them about what you want. When I went around that day, I had two things pushing. But I asked one sheeter, 2 paragraphs, each long. The first paragraph, very brief, here's the problem. Second paragraph, very brief, here's my solution, and also included, here's the part of the code we should go. And so most of the work is already done for them right there. Lay out in front of them. And it was very effective.
Yeah, you solve problems for them, make it easier for them to find what they need to do. And the staffers do the work. The relationship with the rep, the senator, is really just about encouraging the staffer to elevate your things and all the other requests he gets. So that's where you get your work done. I would have done yesterday just for a couple hours at the end of the day, because I didn't get there until 3. And I got a tremendous reception from everybody I've talked to, mostly with staffers, because everybody's either going home or going back to the district, and going back to their districts already because of the weather. But I talked to a few people who were reps or senators. They were very gracious, very happy to hear from me, happy to see me, and it is that relationship. And just don't forget that we think this is a complicated place. They think it's a complicated place too. And the 7,000 bills coming in and everybody talking to me and trying to keep it all straight. It's a huge headache for sure. So there's a little bit of the squeaky wheel theory that plays out there, but there's also, if you can help them to stay organized, things, and make yourself a resource where they say, oh, yeah, I know Yale's got this subject or Kenya's got this subject. Again, that's solving problems for them by being a resource for them. That's I think we're already out there already.
One of the other things that we picked up on was we would find out about a bill that we did not know about. Not within the constraints of this, but just, for instance, Terry Leo Wilson has an education bill that is putting the materials in what we want into the instructional materials. We've got it into the books, but it's not on their desk. It's not on their, and so we're missing hugely because it's not getting there. So we learned about this, and I mean it's a game changer bill. 1686, and we were able to take bills and suggest and ask them if something came up about education, we would suggest that they look at that bill. And we would talk about it just a little bit, and then we would take their bill and we would talk about it to the next place. So they knew what we were trying to figure out what is important and how can we help them, and we actually did some, what I call cross-pollination. Yeah.
So see that. I think we have, I'm sorry, because I think we took a little different approach. Robin and I had a meeting on Wednesday, so we could be there on Thursday. And we had, thank you, Chris. And we filled out the thank you cards for the people that we wanted to. We identified legislation that they had proposed within our platform. And then we looked at the areas that they weren't covering. And so we go, and again, most of them were staffers, but they were very friendly, especially when our entries to say, we brought thank you. And, the whole attitude just kind of changed. That was Robin's idea. It was her idea. It wasn't mine. I would have gone in there with a hammer. She was in there with mine.
The lobbyists use food.
But
I'm not above bribing with cookies and candy and whatever else.
But it just, opened up the discussion right away. So, and then we told them we were from El Paso. Whoever didn't have their name on a border security issue, we touched base on that, and we wanted to make sure we talk about our children and parents' rights and things like that. But because we walk in with a thank you note and tell them that up front, you can see the whole atmosphere within the office change. It worked very well.
Plus, Robin had her daughter with her, so people had to be nice.
That's exactly right. Having her along was great. And we made hers do the entry when we walked in there. And we're here for this, and we want to thank you. She did that the first time we asked her to do that. It was like, but she does a great job. She's 15 years old, a young lady. She's handled herself very well. But anyway, it worked for us. We had a lot of officers. Just great discussion.
Shows with kindness. Imagine that. Okay, so do we want, for each section, do we want to sort of rank order our bills of the ones we've submitted and they're on the list that Tom's got? This is our number one priority, our second priority, and then vote on them at our weekly meetings. Gail, you're nervous.
It's gonna be hard to pick favorites.
I know. Ask him for your favorite child.
I've listened to all of the conversation about not becoming like LP, right? And so I'm gonna give this group kudos for being thoughtful about this. And I think that this group has the brains to make decisions, that we don't have to go in voting for or against a bill. We can go in with our concerns and with our kudos.
So we're gonna skip that.
That's my.
Sure. I know that election integrity committee, one of the problems we've had.
Wait, the LP election integrity committee?
No, actual election integrity.
I shouldn't say actual, that's LP people give me grief if I say that.
And, but to hold your finger on LP, not something on it, right? So one of the problems we have is we try to, we go through our list, right, and we're looking at strictly election integrity. We're not looking at the priorities per se. We're looking at anything that affects election integrity. And so we find these bills, yeah, we like these bills. Well, then we try to send them over to LP, and of course their first question is, well, how does this address our priorities? I mean, yeah, it's a good bill maybe, but it doesn't really address our priorities. And so what David's been working on, I think you're included in this.
Yeah, he's got to put his own camps.
Yeah, but it's using both camps. But in this case, what they're trying to do is so we can publish what's coming out of our committee, separate from LP. And I'm thinking this would be a good idea for us to do. If we have bills we want to support, they may not necessarily fit into their priorities, but they're still good ideas that we want to push.
Yeah, that's actually something I was thinking about. Names. Chad Schumach at RPT. I talked to Jill and talked to who's the chair of LP? Jill. Probably not LP.
Debbie.
Yeah, Debbie said, talk to Debbie and Jill. And we kind of agreed. We got Chad just agreed that he'll step up and he will take Tom's list. We talked about this in our Zoom call. Take Tom's list and then he'll organize it and watch the bills that we've got marked so that if they come before committee and he sends out a notice to everybody, I haven't seen any of those yet, but I'm gonna start having committee meetings, so I need to talk to them about that. And Tom told me that there's 2 bills on his list from platform, they're having committee meetings this next week. So I don't know which bills yet, but we need to look at that so we can start being informed. But, so that's kind of one side of it. But the other side is what Ken's saying. How do we let the rest of our SRAC colleagues know what we're looking at? Because LP publishes their letter and they're on the RFP website and everything.
You don't want to publish a letter?
Really? Okay. And we don't do that, so that how do we communicate with everybody the rest of what we're doing? Just everybody being SRAC, not one. So I don't have a set plan for that yet, but I think if we, and that's why I was asking about priorities, if there's things that you especially want to mention, we probably could put together something that comes out of our meetings. Here's what we talked about today, or here's the ones that we're really focused on. So just, if you want to do that, let me know. If there's something that we can highlight, I'll kind of send some of that or in the chat and some of that.
How many bills do you have in the back?
I don't even know. I've got finance. I've got like 8, 9 right now, but I know there's probably another 30 that I need to look at because they've been filing so many bills. Like we talked about last time, you gotta go and Tom looked at the spreadsheet, there's so many bills being filed, just get through all the rest of them. Just a chore. You go to one side of the house, forget the other side. So if I get that many.
200 yesterday.
255 or 277, so it's like a literally a day.
I don't have Tom Novis keeps up with it, I really don't, but I'm thankful he does, because I don't think I can do what he does.
Well, I'll tell you secretly that it's mechanized somehow. People like just copied something that's a TLO over to his spreadsheet and it just populates. I don't know how you do it. I'm not
Still something I could not do.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for him.
So yeah, so we need to keep, I guess, on top of it. Are you guys looking at the House side or are you just looking at the Senate side? I'm just looking at the Senate side. You're looking at both. You're looking at both? Both? Okay.
Well, trying.
Well, I've had to narrow my focus down to medical freedom and particularly vaccine mandate, but that's quickly becoming medical freedom. You know, it's kind of all getting lumped into one big snowball here because there is so much just in that area. And I'm keeping up with that anyway because of my special committee. So I don't have the bandwidth to keep up with, you know, Medicare, Medicaid.
Finance. So like anything is tax related, anything that's happening in the world, anything is property taxes. There's 2 sides.
It's that way for all of us. And we're still just figuring out what we're doing here, but I see us as more of a advocacy role with this committee.
Yep.
And another thing I said, I think on one of our Zoom meetings, is I discovered the importance of identifying who my activist groups are and forming relationships with those people because y'all, they do the heavy lifting that we could not ever do. We're covering a very broad stance, but we're their connection to the party, so they appreciate us. And I just tell them, look, we're behind what you guys are doing. If you need us, here's my name and my phone number and my email. Come talk to me. And I do try to sort of make contact with them periodically shoot them a text, whatever. I have a couple of groups in particular that I'm working with. They don't seem to have the time to talk, and I don't either. But, you know, hey, I was in this House rep's office, and they spoke highly of you. You know, they're really appreciative of what you're doing for Bill XYZ. And we've got a little vaccine mandate bill coming up. And I know the rep personally, he shoots me text messages. He goes, hey, I think I'm being referred to committee. I may need people who can testify. I'll know more next week. And so I immediately copied and pasted his text and sent it on to my activist groups and said, heads up, this little bill, which is very important in the scheme of things, it's huge, but it's kind of like one of those things you were talking about, doesn't get a lot of attention. But your activists understand it. They understand it. And they're doing that. We were just talking about you. Were your ears burning?
Come in, we have questions.
Okay.
Sure. How do you keep up with all the bills? My theory is that you just like data dump stuff out of TLO and just copy it into your spreadsheet here. Because you're not sitting there typing up description 277 bills one by one, are you?
No. Okay, so
I told you cheating.
It's not cheating.
I scarf down new bills and I filter them in and create a topic for each one. Okay? And decide whether I want to research more and take a position based on that description. And also at that time figure out.
Do you type out the description?
Yeah.
So you read the bill and then you.
I read the caption. And I also put in whether it's whether I think it belongs to an LP, or if I think that there is no LP and I think platform needs it. Then I now dump, since bills have been referred, I will dump the whole list of all the Senate bills. Scarf out the last action item. Make sure that the number I have is the same as the number that I've got of bills already in. We'll then replace whatever the last action with the new set. Check to see if anything in there has been referred that is not, that I previously didn't have a committee defined for. In which case then I take that and plop it in a committee. If it's scheduled.
You are looking at every bill.
What?
You are looking at every bill.
I'm looking at I'm reading each caption. Yes. Yeah.
He's not cheating.
Yeah, I have to read the caption to figure out a topic.
And then there are a whole series of things that he does once he.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you.
And then same down.
So, where does it belong? You know, which LP section is looking at it?
Yeah.
Right? You put in LP sec, LP group that's looking at it. But for all of us, you just put platform.
Okay, so I will put platform. When one of your groups tells me that it belongs to them, I will then put them at their piece in it.
Okay, so it's like platform finance.
Yeah.
You'll put what? Platform finance?
Yeah, FIN something.
Okay.
Like platform state affairs, platform business, commerce, and transportation or something.
Yeah.
But you need us to tell you that.
Yeah.
I sent Tom a list of all my bills for business, commerce, transport, and the different blanks that they were representing.
Yep.
So.
And I will take the claims then and add the claims in the comment view. Okay. I also.
That's what I was going to say, is that we told them what blank was.
Yeah. I also will check to see if there's a companion to it. You know, based on, I look at the caption, and if I think I've seen that caption before, I'll check it to see if there is a companion.
Okay. So you're not searching, you're just working up a unit, which is very much similar.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I think I was looking for that, but she's not here.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
He's retired, isn't he?
Yeah.
Is this is his new full-time job.
It's a nice ride.
He literally made it his full-time job when he took this on.
Yeah, I asked
And
him.
he was already doing this before he got on the SRC.
Was he?
It started, it's developed.
Yeah, so he sorts a lot of the stuff, when we go to convention, and I bring this platform here, we get all the stuff that comes up from all the county commissions and everything, and he basically takes all that and puts it in a data field for me, a spreadsheet, and sorts it, identifies different things so that we can sort it and assign it to our subcommittees. Now, he's doing that for Harrison County, so they can track the bills that they want to follow the platform. The platform is just the Harrison County thing.
Suggestion for next year is have him come in and explain what he does. Because when I went through, I didn't know all that. And I was looking for border security. But I read, he's got them classified as human trafficking, immigration, criminal justice, we classified some of these, but all of these relate to border security. It's the issues that if I would have understood that, and that would have been fine, I probably would have done this anyway, because his classification in my mind is border security, even though he calls it human trafficking or criminal justice or something like that. It was,
Yeah, that's my problem, because finance is, everything has got some component of finance. But I look at, first thing I look at, all the warm stuff, but then there's property taxes, it's something different. He's got municipal taxes.
Search term, you're comfortable with bonds.
Don't use fiscal note.
Go nuts, what?
Don't search on fiscal note.
No. So, okay, all right, so what else we need to talk about? So we're not gonna do that.
I think we're just still figuring out what it is we're doing in this committee and how to go about it, and it's not as easy as I think we all thought it was gonna be.
Well, we're all kind of siloed because everybody's got their own section of the platform, so we're all kind of doing it. So I kind of view these meetings as an opportunity for us to just tell everybody else what you're doing and share our meeting. We all are going to go for it and do the best we can with our section.
Key off of what Becky has suggested, that I have found helpful with the Betty Taxpayer Funded Lobbying, is identifying those groups that I become aware of because I get on their list or I see that particular thing.
Right, yeah.
And then when I figure out, oh, okay, this is a whole group of people, so the Fredericksburg Republicans, or Tea Party, are huge advocates that come to the convention of states are typically going to be in alignment, and they get people here to testify. But
yeah, they're scary.
They're scary, but they're helpful.
Indeed. Unless you take their plank out of the platform.
Okay. I'm using them, okay? Use them, because they're good people. You don't have to agree with everybody 100% of the time. You can work together on areas of agreement. That's right.
I just got a lot of hate over the last 2 cycles.
Do you agree with your wife on everything? You like hate meal? Oh my gosh.
No.
Your wife is a Democrat?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not a specialist. About sleeping with the enemy, gosh.
I got a text message earlier from a rep, I won't say who. It said, Tom said, hey, don't vote to kick out TIF or is there a move to do that?
I got the same text.
There's been stuff out there where
Could come out of where? Probably partnerships.
They just got in.
I know, they just got in.
They're not legally a partner according to Anna.
They couldn't, that's why we changed the name to partnership.
I know, they didn't make it. Right. We would be crazy to try to kick out TFRW. We would be crazy to do that. But
I misunderstood the text at first. The folks said, vote to kick them out. Sheriff Hardin is one of the deals where, yeah, I've had some issues in the past, but they're so big and so widespread, and they're active, and you can't afford to do without.
I just learned the other day that when you have club dues, like your local club keeps like a third of that.
That's right.
A third, at least a third goes up to CFRW, and a third goes to like the national management structure is.
TFRW keeps $5. The rest of it goes to NFRW.
Okay.
So ours is 45.
Yeah. So my club is 45, they keep 13, and the rest of it goes up.
Yeah, a lot of times they're like confederate because of that. But, you know, like I say, speaking for them, they are big, they're widespread, they're networked, and they're savvy, they will act.
That's true. Well, my little brain was like, okay, we're RPT, we should do that with all the county.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should make them send us part of their money.
I have a question for you. When you sent me this on the vaccine mandate, so because you have the vaccine mandate committee and there's platform, when is it one versus the other?
Well, that first list of bills that I emailed you, I copied you on it just now.
Yeah.
That is a list of bills that the vaccine mandate committee met Wednesday and endorsed, and it will be coming before the body for the SRC to endorse those bills. Those are endorsed by vaccine mandate committee, not platform. Because we don't really endorse bills.
Endorse, so basically, anything that she's covering or liking, it's automatically.
It's kind of overlap.
Okay, so we have a similar condition with election integrity, where they have a separate committee, and they also have an LP. Okay? So, they give me two different groups. So some are by the election integrity committee, some are by the LP board.
Right.
And I separate those two.
But there's some overlap between the two.
Now, I also track vaccine or medical freedom as an item in my spreadsheet.
Okay.
Okay.
So anything medical freedom that you would track, anything that I send you that is specifically vaccine mandate, special committee stuff, anything like that is going to be in the platform. It's all platform. It's all platform. We're very broad and generalized.
So,
platform.
So what you're saying is instead of tracking it as separately tracking it as medical freedom, I should track it as platform HHS?
I don't particularly need you to do that unless you need to do it for your own reasons or for others that are maybe watching it.
You should have him do it, it'll make it a little bit better.
Tom, I would give you,
selfishly.
I would give you the mandate to do with it whatever makes sense to you and your system.
Okay.
I realize it's confusing. I'm confused too.
Yes. Okay.
But it's kind of very, it's like soup.
Yes. Okay. So based on the way you wrote this, those that were endorsed.
I would put those under vaccine mandate committee.
Oh, okay. So just forget about platform for this.
For that, I would, yeah. Just because
Sorry.
they're taken up by our committee and pushed by our committee, which is me, which is all the same.
Okay, but I'll tell you this, what you will show up as, your endorsed will show up as support. Okay?
Yes.
No, I can use it, you prefer the term endorsement. I can do that. Okay. And the reason is, I won't say approve, because anything that's approved is from LP.
Okay, yeah, we don't want to mix it with LP. It's not.
So that way I can distinguish the two.
Okay.
Let me make another point, because I think this was interesting. I'm on border security, but I picked up what the title is immigration, obviously border security, constitution, human trafficking.
Oh, yeah.
Immigrant towards human trafficking, criminal justice, everything that is remotely concerned.
Okay.
So I wouldn't propose to change anything. I mean, it takes a little more for me, but But this is great. That's great, appreciate it.
Well, you know, and then if in fact, if Border Security OP picks up an item that I have don't have it listed as Border Security, I will add it to it. Or if Platform picks it up and it's something basic for it, I will add Platform to that column.
Hey, you got Platform, that's supporting you. And I didn't know what approved meant. I thought that meant that maybe it'd come out of committee or something.
Approved is LP.
Okay, I'm gonna contact them. I'd like them to approve some of these also. Soon.
Okay, so what else do we have to talk about? Tony?
I don't know, I guess, other things we might think about doing that's, after the legislative session or something that I was thinking is maybe, getting feedback from the committee members that were on platform last time. You know, what did they like about the process, just, cause are we doing that too, or is it just the platform that's already made that we're having?
People on the convention?
Yeah. I know you chaired it, but I don't know, just the whole process and the platform itself. And to build before the next convention to help that community.
Yeah, the main thing I think that we need to do, good point, because it's kind of what we're talking about. The way that it came to us was not ideal in terms of sorting. So if we can figure out a way to get information that comes up from the Senate district and county commissions, order of action.
Yeah, maybe we could help with the process.
So we may be working on that with probably Karen Marshall and commission, and coming up with a format in advance that we mandate everybody to into. We actually changed rules, changed department, or SRC rules, I think, in December, that Karen had worked on to set that up, to make sure that it comes to a format that these rules, and design that. Probably last half this year.
Yeah, I was just trying to come up with ideas of things we could do. And the other thing is just educating the grassroots about the platform and the county chairs. A lot of people don't even realize what the platform is or how it's created.
It's funny, I brought that up, we're talking about how busy we were yesterday, and about 3/4 of them, when I said, I knew moving this building reached the platform, they're all, and yeah, got a lot of work to do. But some of them do. It's just, again, this is like, you gotta understand, it's a building relationship, and if you're in the face to any platform, here's why. They'll be more inclined to, if you're nice to them, show how it will help them, and they will also be more inclined to. So all the things that we're going to talk about, we recommend lead towards more acceptance of the platform, and more knowledge of the platform. And what I'm ultimately driving us to do to get that is that when we have those things in effect, it will lead to more relevance to the platform. So that's my sort of end goal. And that's why we're doing things the way we are, is ultimately after our cycles of this, hopefully we've got enough people on the hill, on the bench, at the staffer level too, saying, start putting it in their mindset, okay, is this in the platform? We can figure it out. That's where I think we want our committee to get to. We'll take a couple of cycles of it. Good points, okay. If I have anything else, so unless you guys.
I have one more item.
Yep.
I'm gonna shamelessly do something here. Would you
sell t-shirts?
Would you stand up?
Oh, yes.
I want you to look at that wonderful shirt he has. Okay?
Yeah, very nice. Oh,
This
Ah.
purely by coincidence, we were talking on the phone, and we were talking something related to small businesses, and I said, well, I got small businesses. And I told him what it was, and he just, what? You own that place? Anyway,
Roses is very famous, I don't know if you have that to say.
well, I can't, there's Marty Robbins, there's a song called El Paso by Marty Robbins, and it talks about Rosa's Cantina. That is the Rosa's Cantina.
Oh my goodness.
Because that's on the old highway before the interstate was there, and that's where the highway went through. And, anyway, so he asked for a couple of shirts, I sent pictures.
Very nice.
I know
There's a website, they're available for purchase. I told Lawful that I'm gonna stand up tomorrow and say, everybody needs to buy one so we can order them to the next committee meeting and keep it.
That's not why I'm here. Chicken credit to that.
So, and this is your,
They're great. What's that?
this is your restaurant?
My daughter and I own it. I financed it, okay? She runs it. But,
Where's the restaurant? The song is written. Yeah. I was talking to somebody who's much younger than me, and they're like, what song?
Yeah.
Well, we can always play it.
But we know.
But it's still like, all-time 15th or 17th. It's an ballad, it's got a story to it. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
So, but they're also available in short sleeve, light gray.
Different colors.
Yeah.
It was different red ones.
Okay. All right. If there be nothing else, we are adjourned at. Oh, Ken's got something.
I'm still kind of a man on the search for mission here. My platform, main gate is government and election integrity. And you said you really prefer not to focus on election integrity since we already have 2 committees working on that, and I understand, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the other big thing under this heading is taxpayer-funded mandates, which Gail has recently stolen off from under me. So.
Oh, no, you're not stealing it. You can take it back.
But anyway, there's something here that is a bit interesting. It's a bit unorthodox. I wanted to tease it last time. There's a thing here, 237, Sunset Commission. We support a majority.
With Sunset?
Yeah, majority citizen-led Sunset Commission. Whether it is the Texas Sunset Advisory Commission. Okay, there's a whole chapter 325, I think, is the government code that deals with it. And it does involve some legislation being proposed, but it's also involved with dealing with the commission. So it's, number one, there's nothing here that really mandates that we look at sunset bills. But would it be okay if I pursue that?
Absolutely. It's in the platform, it's in your second platform, take a look at it.
We were discussing that chapter 313, isn't that one of the sunset bills, on our last committee Zoom meeting?
Yep.
That, gives that tax deferment.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the things that I was originally targeting in finance. And so I'm gonna keep it on target as I know. I was trying to get a bill written to take away some of the other things like the moving picture industry credits, and then there's another slush fund, Texas Economic Development Fund, that the government uses as a slush fund to try to get people to move here. In the 313, we successfully killed. They went back, and Abbott came out and said, we've already lost a plant to South Carolina, Tennessee, because of this. And I'm like, you didn't lose it because of that, because other states have the big giveaways. And so the theory is we should, to be competitive in getting businesses to move here, we have to have tax giveaways too. But my theory is, and I'm posted in one of the signal groups, is Mercedes-Benz doesn't offer discount coupons for their cars. So because it's a good product, everybody buys it anyway. Texas is a good product. People are moving here in droves anyway.
So are companies.
We don't need to offer tax incentives to get people to do business in Texas. So that's why I wanted to kill those other bills, but I can't get anybody to sponsor it. It's Abbott's personal slush fund. That's how he uses to drive development, it says. So there's so many things wrong with having that I want to get into that. So what I'm going to do is oppose reinstatement for 13 instead of trying to kill the other ones. If I can keep that one killed, that's going to be more. That plus property taxes, and then I have to just look for other stuff that comes through, and it's not really staying in space, but it's in the platform, so. Yep, so
Are we
Ken, you'll take
looking
that
at
time.
the $40 billion and how they are putting bills in of how to spend that money? I know that there
Oh,
are
you mean
restrictions.
The excess?
Yeah,
You talking about the rainy day fund or just the surplus that's not?
the surplus, okay.
Yeah,
Are we looking at what they're looking toward those funds to be used for?
not necessarily, because, they're going to spend that through the appropriations process. And if it's not directly a platform related thing, really nothing personal. So for example, I think, Lieutenant Governor came out the other day, or maybe the governor said, they're going to push an extra $13 billion into infrastructure, which is just going to be rebuilding roads and stuff. A lot of that will probably go to West Texas, because the roads are bad out there, and so that's satisfying them. The infrastructure is in our platform, but it's actually, one of the things is that we should do more for the roads. So that's in alignment with us. What are some of the other things that they're pushing?
Border security, it automatically has a big dollar bill that goes along with it.
Border security,
So
another
they
$5
pass it, the money
billion.
goes with it.
Another $5 billion in border security, so we're all in favor of that. Another 13th, Dan Patrick, one of his priorities, the 13th check for retired teachers to supplement their pension, which I don't like, but we're not going to stop that. And teacher raises, which we don't have anything in the platform about that specifically, so another person attached to there.
And a portion of it is to reduce property taxes.
Yeah, so I'll be supporting that, obviously, a big portion to support property taxes, thank you, I've got that one. It's a portion actually, it's gonna go to that. Then I still-
And that is restricted, as I understand, there's only so much they can do there.
Well, I mean, they're talking about different ways, I mean.
So you're evaluating the bills
Dan's.
to see how they want to use it.
Dan, is wanting to basically, expand the homestead exemption. That's gonna take up a certain portion of it. Because it's been over how many years since we had an increase in the homestead exemption, it's been too much, we're kind of behind inflation. So he's gonna bump it up, where I think, and be a little bit ahead of where we should be on
Well, they
inflation.
bumped it last time, up
Yeah.
to 40, and they're going to 100 this time.
Yeah, but it's been a
But
while
before
since,
that,
before that, so if you look at, it's kind of like new inflation since the last 40 years, they're not, the amount that's excluded, it's not kept pace, even though they've had a couple of bumps, so we're trying to bump it up to 100, and be slightly ahead of where we should be over that period, so that's a positive, but that doesn't provide real structural reform, like Heinz plan is to do away with I saw something Monday, they were talking about, maybe restructuring the B&O a little bit, which is good. Not B&O, what is it? Maybe, so, yeah. So, that's something that they need to do, I think that's a plan.
Is M&O debt?
Maintenance and operations are still part of the, tax that you get from your school districts. So if they eliminate the ability of school districts to tax based on their maintenance and operation expenses, they'll reduce school taxes a little bit. So that's a permanent cut to their overall taxes.
And I think they would supplement that from the state, right?
Yeah, that's
Basically, the
what-
state would give the school districts that money for M&O and would come off of their tax.
Yes. Here's, so it becomes a general business tax, and a lot of it's coming from the severance tax, is why we're having.
Well, we could talk about that later, because that one concerns me a little bit, because.
Property tax will go together.
Yeah, and the other thing is to increase sales taxes, to replace the business tax, which you're gonna have a huge sales tax, which is regressive, but, maybe is better, because that way everybody's paying into it instead of just something.
And that makes it under your choice. So much of paying sales tax. Property tax is not a choice.
on property taxes.
We need to eliminate the sales tax rebate to foreigners.
Well, this is like fun. Here's what's making me mad right now. I know you're all the wonders what it was.
You're kind of foaming red around the neck.
What's bothering me? They're talking about reducing taxes. And you know what 313 is? They're talking about reinstating and we just sunsetted what they're just talking about. It's tax abatement on school property taxes.
To businesses.
For 75 to 99 years. So in order to get somebody to move here, we're saying we're going to waive off on you. You can build your $40 billion plant here. You won't have to pay property taxes, you know, until 2200. And yet we're saying our taxes are too high. So it's complicated. If you would stop doing the exceptions, we have more tax money coming in, more schools. We're working against ourselves.
And it's not a widespread thing.
Yeah, so what it does technically is it incentivizes individual districts to give away the 313 because they can get development in their district and get more money from the state to cover their property taxes, so the property taxes in their district don't get high. So it's really whoever gives away this the most then moves from a local tax base to a statewide tax base. So basically, the ones that get it get all the rest of us to pay for their school district.
I have property in Pecos County, and they have oil and gas production, and their tax rates are as low as they can go to the state requirements, and they're still returning money to the state because their bonds for building schools doesn't come under that limitation. They wanted to tear a whole school down because the electrical system wasn't adequate to carry today's power that they need for repairs. Instead of just running extra cables in there. And I was asked to go to the school board and talk to them about it. I don't even live there, but I'm property there. But you know, it's stuff like that that has unintended consequences and always worry. They know that it doesn't cost them anymore because the state's going to take that money anyway. We're already collecting it. I build a brand new school and then they will take my money. It's just, it's a screwy deal.
Reverse incentives.
What does that used to be?
How
does it work? What it, like, is it
there's a section of the code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chapter 313.
Gotcha. Okay.
We need to go after chapter 12, 312. Yeah. It used to be covered.
Okay. All right, anything else? We are adjourned.
Interesting how all that works together within counties that don't have oil and gas. I mean, it's like, that's not fair either, you know? What things?
Statue of Liberty with their head in hands?
Covering her eyes. Yeah.
Look at that. Wait, how long you had that?
It's like
10 years?
Yeah. More than that.
Since 2008?
It was actually before that.
Oh, okay.
2003 maybe? I can see.
On 20 years. The vision.
Yep. And I got the don't tell me on my back.
All right, good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We made that offer, I think Tom tried to attempt to do that, but we were told to not. So we relied then on ATI's council to actually execute that. And that's where I think we fell apart. So we really just call it what it is.
Unless you're
All of the design and construction. And it was in GLO, not really that rules come down on the process until they saw it. And that was a big problem. So to me, that's why the other was
the one where like the generate was voted
to the stakeholders to everybody.
Anybody expressed their opinion about it? So I think what we're gonna do in the committee is we're gonna strip it out.
Yeah, she came in July, Lisa Tapp. Maybe it was late June or early July.
I like to postpone this date and special meeting. We'll keep the same, we have a special meeting.
So that, I believe the other. Okay, so is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, allow you to vote all in favor of.
But I'm not going to keep it
All those say aye.
Right.
All those say nay. Passes unanimously. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, and I actually asked for that, when I was making, when they were, when I was communicating to them that I received the third part of the expenditures and the accounts.
I'm on record saying I hate resolutions.